Hey everyone, my name is Adam Moriarty-Isles, and after analyzing thousands of games with our good friends at SkillCapped, we've identified many major concepts that are causing you to lose more. In this guide, we are going to go over the top 5 mistakes people are making in or below Diamond. These mistakes have been hand-picked by our analysts and content creators with the goal of helping you avoid making them during the laning phase. I'm excited to announce that this is our first collaboration between Mobalytics and SkillCapped, so without dragging out the intro too long, let's just get right into it. Our first major mistake is one that mid laners get flack for all the time, and it's improper roam timings. People tend to have a lot of incorrect opinions on exactly when a mid laner should roam. So I'm here to help you know when you're at fault for a bad roam, or if it really was your teammate's fault for dying to a no-flash Katarina who ran through a bunch of vision. Many mid laners fall into one of these two categories. Either you roam a lot, or none at all. But regardless of which one you fall under, every mid laner has been blamed for not roaming enough, or not following your opponent's roam. This is one of the biggest low elo problems for a mid laner, so big that we decided to include it here, but can't go through every single situation as they can be very specific. To help you though, here are some of the basic guidelines and rules you will always build off of when attempting to decide if you should roam or not. First up, you should scan your minimap for a roam opportunity every time your lane is pushed into tower. This allows you to miss less last hits if you do choose to leave lane. The second rule is kind of like a set play. If you notice a side lane tower is low, try to slow push your minion wave. Then, crash it into tower on the cannon wave so you can set up a nice easy dive while losing the minimum amount of farm possible. The next guideline is that you can roam to skirmishes if you think you can make it in time to impact it, even at the cost of ignoring your minion wave if it's over an objective, or if the enemy team has a lot of shutdowns. In cases where you give it a 50-50 chance of winning though, and it's not even over an objective, it's best to just play selfishly and play for a lane rather than take the gamble on joining the skirmish. Instead, the better option is to push your lane to tower, then check back on the skirmish to see if you can clean it up. And if you can't, that's fine, just take some plate money. Now this last guideline is probably the most important. If your opponent laner roams, do not follow them if you don't have vision of them or the enemy jungler and river. I don't care what your teammates say or really anyone else, if you try and do this, especially versus assassins, you're probably going to die. Instead, hard push your wave to tower while watching your minimap to see when your opponent reappears. Then, assess if you still need to roam down to help or if you can just take some plate money. If you get spam ping for following this advice, just mute them as it's the best option as they have no idea what they're talking about. If you decide to follow these guidelines for when to roam, you'll notice more consistent gameplay where you're not gambling for wins and instead you'll win off big brain calculated decisions. Our next major mistake is freezing when you shouldn't. Freezing the lane is a very common tactic in mid lane as it allows you to deny the enemy CS while also being able to last hit safely yourself. But oftentimes, you can be blamed for doing it at the wrong time and not following up on team plays. So when is the correct time to use this technique? Freezing when your opponent roams is a mistake that mid laners commonly make. In this first example, you'll notice that Neeko leaves lane and Diana is left alone with the minion wave. In this situation, Diana could freeze the wave in the middle for a short time, allowing her to more easily all-in Neeko when she comes back to lane. But if you choose the more 1v1 focused wave control tactic here, it would be a mistake. This is because Neeko is very likely to fully commit to her roam due to how overextended Diana's top lane and jungle are currently. Knowing this, Diana shoves the wave instantly so that she can get plates and turret damage. If she had done this any slower, due to an attempted freeze, even for a short time, she would have only been able to get 1 plate instead of 2, showcasing how important it is to be decisive about your wave control options. Our other common freezing mistake is giving a free freeze to your opponent. This is mostly done when someone does an incorrect recall timing. In this example, Brand Gragas killed Twisted Fate with a nice gank. The minion wave is pushing towards Brand, but due to his very low mana, he only has 2 options to maximize this situation. Option 1 is if Gragas is actually willing to help. Brand can ping him to help push his minion wave to tower so that the wave resets. Option 2 is if Gragas doesn't feel like helping, just like he doesn't feel like giving him blue buff. In this instance, you can kill some of the caster minions to create a slow push, making it so that Brand can recall and return to lane without missing too much farm. Unfortunately, this video was not created earlier as Brand made the mistake of trying to push the wave on his own, giving the TF a free freeze. This can turn out very badly for Brand because his flash is down, making it so that he can easily get ganked and killed once he gets back to lane. Freezing quite literally freezes your map pressure and influence on the game, so the general rule here is, if a major event is happening, like a skirmish, an objective, or a team fight, just don't freeze. Our third biggest mistake is one that I see happen at lower levels of play, but also at higher levels of play, and it's begging the jungler for a gank at the wrong time. Almost every single game you will see someone complaining about not getting a gank, followed by them pinpointing exactly when they should have got them. Were these people actually correct though, or were they just complaining due to their own lack of knowledge? In reality, as a mid laner, you'll need to accept that even though you're better than the other guy, don't worry, I get you, and he just got lucky early game, that you'll need to wait for the right time for your jungler to set up a gank. You will need patience even if you might take a CS loss or poor recall timing so that you can ensure a proper comeback. The first step is knowing when not to call your jungler over. Do not call them over if your opponent is stronger than you and has full resources, aka HP, mana, ult, summoners, all that stuff, even if they're pushed up. Unless you have a lot of CC, this is a recipe for disaster and you will likely get 1v2'd by assassins or champions like Darius. Even worse, if you get counter ganked during this situation, you're not only going to lose, but you're going to put your jungler behind even further. Do not call your jungler over if the wave is currently or sometime soon not going to be in a gankable position, aka either it's in the middle or pushing towards you. This is a surefire way to waste your jungler's time and make it so that they probably won't even want to come back. Lastly, do not call your jungler over if you don't even have your ultimate up or your key spells. For example, if you're a Malzahar begging for ganks while your ultimate is down, you're doing it wrong. Instead, ping the timer of your ultimate and then ask for a gank once it's up. The second step towards proper gank assistance timing is naturally knowing when to call your jungler to help you. Some general rules for this are, call your jungler over if you know the enemy has no flash and the wave is going to be pushing towards you. This will be your bread and butter gank setup even at the highest levels of play. You'll also want to call them over if you believe you're about to be dove. In these kind of situations, it's a great chance to take down an overconfident opponent who's looking to dive you off of a stacked minion wave. In this example, we have Qiyana who is low and about to be dove by Mordekaiser's release. Normally in this situation, she would need to back off, causing her to lose a ton of farm and XP, but thanks to Rengar being around, she can look to bait this dive and turn the game around. This is a fantastic play because normally the worst outcome is going 1-for-1 unless someone really messes up. And the best case scenario is getting a double kill with both Rengar and Qiyana surviving. In this particular case, Qiyana does die, but Rengar gets a double kill, which is something you can definitely type worth for in all chat. The key here is being patient and only asking for ganks when you're certain it will work. By doing this, you make it way easier for your jungler to gank for you, allowing you to make comebacks more consistently. One of the most common mistakes mid laners make is not warding enough, and even when they do, mid laners often don't put it in the right places. This causes a lot of friction between them and the other laners due to how important mid vision is, as it impacts every lane. To avoid this kind of situation, make sure to check out your Mobalytics GPI to see if you place enough wards. Once you've confirmed that you do in fact know what vision is, you'll want to know where to place that vision and at what time. Don't worry, I got you covered. Here are some common places and timings in the early game where you can place vision. Number 1, place your trinket ward in the river 20 seconds before the scuttle spawns. This will give your team a lot of information on where the jungler is at the beginning of the game and will help everyone on your team avoid the first gank. Number 2 would be pushing your lane up and then warding the enemy raptor camp. I cannot stress how important it is to help track the enemy jungler, and bonus points if the jungler is low, you can probably steal their camp or even kill them on it by tracking them after they leave the raptor camp. For number 3, avoid warding the side lane brush near river because the vision actually has a gap in it where junglers can just slide by if they hug the wall. Instead, just ward slightly outside of it to avoid junglers trying to get sneaky on you. And lastly, number 4. When versus heavy roaming style champions like Talon for example, ward the middle of the lane so you can see which direction they roam to after they shove the lane. This one is one of my favorites and it will really help you avoid losing to roam style champions. Although sometimes even if you ping early, your teammates might die, at least you have the moral high ground. Now you might be wondering, where should I place my control wards because they always end up dying and I don't want to spend another 75 gold on them. Don't worry, the general rule for control wards is always place them somewhere that you can defend them. You want to use them like a vision foothold. Here are some examples of easy to defend control wards versus more offensive ones. Place the defensive ones when you are behind or even, and place the aggressive ones when you're ahead and want to force fights around mid lane. Moving on to our last mistake from a mid laner, it's helping your jungler at the wrong time. Junglers will often ping you to help them take things like Scuttle, enemy buffs, or even neutral objectives like Dragon or Herald. If you asked a jungle player, they would tell you that the correct time to help them is always, but when is it actually the correct time to follow up, and when is it the right time to abandon them? This is where having good map awareness will help you. You should not only track the enemy jungler, but also your own. Watch your jungler, and whenever they go into river, know that they just entered a contested zone. This means that a fight has a higher % chance to break out because both junglers will be looking to do scuttles, neutral objectives, invade, or even your jungler might just get caught out. Knowing this, to give yourself a better chance to help your jungler out, you'll need to get lane priority so that you can move to help if needed. As a general rule, if you have lane priority as a mid laner and your jungler needs help and you're even or stronger than your lane opponent, you should always go and help. I'll show you an example of what I mean. Here you'll notice Diana currently has lane priority due to Sylas's recall timing while Hecarim is being invaded. Even though poor Hecarim dies, this allows Diana to freely look for revenge against Sejuani without the loss of farm. After a small skirmish happens, Diana's team comes out on top thanks to her rotating way before Sylas. Now, you might be wondering, what do you do if you don't have priority and your jungler invades like Sejuani did? Well, let's watch to see what happens if you show up late like Sylas did. Sylas does come in and attempt to clean up some kills for his team. Though he does get the Sivir kill, this was actually a huge mistake that cost him his own lane. This is because Sylas's wave is currently in a terrible position. His wave is slow pushing and stacking up just slowly enough for Diana to make it back in time to collect all that juicy money, which ends up being more golden XP than the kill Sylas just got. This is why you shouldn't gamble your lane on following up on situations that were bad to begin with. Instead, focus on gaining a personal advantage like pushing out your own wave, getting tower damage, or even plates, and it's a way more consistent way to win games. Now that you've learned the 5 mistakes mid laners make most often, you will hopefully be able to both spot when others are making them as well as avoid them yourself. Check out our sister guide that's ready to watch right now over at Mobalytics on YouTube, and be sure to subscribe to both platforms if you want to see more collaborations like this one. Thanks for watching.